America's Redwood Prison Mystery 2019, The Mastermind Behind the Alarms. Hit subscribe, because after this story, you'll realize some prisons weren't designed to hold people, they were designed to hide secrets. The alarm was already screaming when Detective Aaron Mercer stepped through the gates of Redwood Federal Penitentiary, one of the oldest maximum security prisons in the United States. Smoke drifted across the yard from a burning laundry cart, officers were shouting orders, and inmates were being forced against the walls in chaotic lines. But the strangest part? No one knew who started it. And worse, no one wanted to say a word. Redwood had seen incidents before, but nothing like this. Something had shaken the entire prison, something powerful enough to silence men who feared nothing. Mercer scanned the yard, watching faces that told a dozen stories. Some looked tense, others terrified. A few looked almost satisfied. And standing at the center of all that unspoken tension was a name whispered only when guards weren't listening. The Coalition. A hidden network inside the prison. Not a single gang, but the quiet handshake of the three most feared groups in the entire United States. A secret agreement, one the Bureau never thought possible. But no one would confirm it. Not yet. As Mercer moved deeper into the yard, he felt the atmosphere change, thick, heavy. Even the guards seemed hesitant. They avoided direct eye contact with certain inmates, stepped lightly around specific corners. It was the first sign something inside Redwood went far beyond the usual turf battles and power plays. A correctional lieutenant pulled Mercer aside. "There was a message," he said quietly. "Left in the chapel. We found it before the fire started." Mercer felt that cold tightening in his chest, the one that always appeared before a case shifted into something far darker. They reached the chapel. The benches were overturned, sheets of paper scattered everywhere, and the faint smell of burned fabric lingered in the air. On the wall, scratched carefully into old wooden panels. "The floor is cracking. They can't hold us forever." Not a threat. A warning. Mercer stepped closer, examining the edges of the carved letters. Someone took their time with this. Someone unafraid of being caught. Someone who expected this message to be seen. Suddenly, a guard called him to the hall. They found an inmate, not harmed, just unconscious, with a folded note pinned to his jumpsuit. The note was written in clean handwriting, precise, almost elegant. Inside were 5 names, 5 inmates who held influence in different corners of the prison, and 1 empty space under the list. A 6th name that had been intentionally left blank. Mercer frowned. What does it mean? The lieutenant swallowed hard. It means they're planning something. And that someone, whoever fits that empty space, hasn't been chosen yet. Before Mercer could respond, lights flickered overhead. Prison staff exchanged nervous glances. The power grid in Redwood was old, unpredictable, but this flicker felt intentional. A single emergency light clicked on. And down the corridor, a door that should have been locked, absolutely locked, hung slightly open. The basement access. No inmate should ever be near it. No guard would open it without authorization. Mercer's pulse climbed. He grabbed a flashlight and pushed the door wider. It gave a soft metallic groan, like it hadn't been opened in years. But inside, dust on the floor had been disturbed. Footprints, clean, deliberate, moved deeper into the shadows. Someone had gone down there. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. He followed the trail slowly, the narrow hallway pressing in on both sides. Pipes rattled overhead like distant whispers. Then he reached the old maintenance stairs leading below the prison, a place even most staff forgot existed. At the bottom of the steps, he saw it. A second message. This one written in blue chalk on the concrete floor. "You're late." Mercer froze. Because this message? It wasn't a warning like the one in the chapel. It was an invitation. And whoever left it wanted him to follow. Detective Mercer descended the final step into Redwood's forgotten underbelly, his flashlight carving thin slices of light through the dust-choked air. The basement felt ancient, a maze of rusted pipes, old storage rooms, and narrow corridors that hadn't been updated since the 1960s. If Redwood was a fortress above ground, down here, it was a secret city. And the footprints he followed moved deeper, Past equipment that hadn't been touched in decades, except someone had touched them. Boxes were shifted, vents pulled loose, old maintenance logs missing. Whoever left the message knew this place intimately. Mercer stopped at a steel access hatch. It was slightly ajar. Inside was a small room with nothing but a table and a single prison folder sitting perfectly centered. A thin layer of dust covered everything but the folder. Someone wanted him to find it. He opened it carefully. Inside were disciplinary reports, incident sheets, guard notes, all mentioning the same thing. Unusual cooperation between inmates who were never supposed to interact. Names from different gangs, different cell blocks, different histories. Yet somehow, they were exchanging favors, trading information, coordinating movements without ever being seen together. This wasn't normal. This was intentional. And suddenly the rumors made sense. The whispers guards dismissed as imagination. They say Redwood has a fourth gang. Not a gang, a council. The coalition chooses who controls the yard. Mercer kept reading. One report. A guard overheard 3 inmates using coded phrases in the laundry room. Another. Inmates refusing medical treatment because they had to stay sharp for the shift changes. Another. An inmate redirected from solitary because of organizational value. Organizational value? Since when did inmates get corporate language applied to them? Then Mercer reached the final page, a list of names circled in blue ink. The same blue chalk color used on the floor. 5 names were marked. The 6th line was blank. That same empty space again. Someone was selecting leaders. Someone was building something. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Mercer killed his flashlight and pressed into the corner. Voices murmured. 2 officers walked by, but they weren't on patrol. They were whispering nervously. "We shouldn't be down here," one said. "Orders came from the top," the other replied. "Warden wants anything left removed." Removed? Mercer waited until their footsteps faded before slipping out. He hurried back up the stairs, stopping when he reached the main hall. The prison was calmer now. The smoke cleared, guards regrouped, but the energy had changed. People were watching him. Not openly, but sideways. Carefully. Even the camera lenses felt like eyes following him up the stairs. He made his way to the administrative wing. The warden's door was shut. Blind closed. Unusual for mid-incident. Mercer knocked twice. No answer. He pushed the door open. Empty. But the desk wasn't. Papers were stacked neatly, a fresh cup of coffee still steaming. Someone left in a hurry. Mercer scanned the desk, expecting documents or files, but instead he found something else. A small envelope. Unmarked. Facing his direction, as though placed deliberately for him. He opened it. Inside was a photo, grainy, low light, clearly taken from one of Redwood's older security cameras. It showed a group of 5 inmates standing in a half-circle in the laundry room, all from different gangs, factions, and histories. And at the center was a 6th figure, blurred, head turned away from the camera. Someone who didn't want to be identified. Someone the system couldn't track. On the back of the photo was a handwritten note. "The flaw isn't the prison. It's the people running it." Mercer felt a sharp chill. Because the handwriting, precise, elegant, was the same as the message left on the unconscious inmate. The same as the note in the basement folder. Someone inside Redwood wasn't just organized. They were strategic, disciplined, and they had reached beyond the yard. Mercer slipped the photo into his coat and walked out of the office, every instinct screaming now. The event in the yard wasn't random. The fire wasn't spontaneous. The footprints, the messages, the blank space on the list. This was all part of something bigger. Something simmering beneath Redwood for years. And as he passed a group of inmates in the hallway, one of them muttered under his breath without looking at him. "You're already in deeper than you think, detective." He froze. But when he turned, the inmate was gone, swallowed back into the crowd. And for the first time since entering Redwood, Mercer felt something he rarely experienced on a case. He wasn't the one doing the investigating anymore. Someone was investigating him. Detective Mercer didn't sleep that night. He sat in his cramped motel room just outside Redwood State Prison, the the single yellow lamp flickering against the peeling wallpaper. The photo lay on the table in front of him, the 5 inmates circling the shadowed figure in the center. The 6th man. The missing name. The one orchestrating everything. Mercer replayed the day in his mind. The staged fire, the unconscious inmate, the footprints, the warden's empty office, the whispered warning in the hallway. Every piece pointed to one thing. Redwood wasn't run by the guards. It was run by the inmates who knew the guards better than they knew themselves. At sunrise, Mercer drove back to the prison. Redwood looked calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that hides pressure underneath. The gates opened slowly, metal grinding like an old warning. Warden Halstead was waiting for him inside the entrance hall. "It's handled," the warden said stiffly. "Yesterday was an isolated incident. We're back to normal operations." Normal? Mercer almost laughed. Halstead looked exhausted, but his eyes were sharp, alert in a way Mercer hadn't seen before. He wasn't relieved the incident was over. He was afraid it wasn't. Mercer pulled the photo from his coat pocket and held it up. "You know about this." Halstead didn't blink. "Those inmates are already under investigation." "You circled their names in the basement," Mercer said. "Who circled them before you?" The pause. Too long. The warden exhaled. "Detective, walk with me." He led Mercer down the long central corridor, past the medical wing and into a quiet administrative hallway. Workers passed by carrying boxes of files, shredding old reports, reorganizing shelves. "Every prison has politics," Halstead said. "Every yard has leadership. But Redwood..." He hesitated. "Redwood has something else." Mercer listened carefully. In the late 1990s, a group of highly intelligent inmates, former accountants, engineers, even a linguist, learned the system inside out. How guards rotated shifts. Which officers were stressed or distracted. What areas maintenance avoided. What blind spots the cameras had. Mercer's stomach tightened. This matched everything he'd seen. "We broke them up," the warden said. "Transferred some. Separated others. But intelligence doesn't disappear. It spreads." "You mean they taught the next generation?" Mercer said. Halstead nodded. "And the next. And the next." They reached a locked room at the end of the hall. Inside was a large evidence board. Photos, documents, diagrams of Redwood's layout. At the center was a name Mercer recognized. Elias Vanner. One of the oldest inmates in Redwood. A model prisoner. Quiet. Helpful. Barely mentioned in reports. Too perfect. "We think he's the 6th man," Halstead said quietly. "But we can't prove it." "Why not?" "Because he never breaks rules," the warden replied. "Everything that happens around him. Never through him." Mercer stared at the photo, Vanner sitting in the library, an open book in his hands, calm as a monk. A strategist. Invisible. Unknown. Untouchable. The warden stepped closer to Mercer. "Yesterday wasn't random. It was a test." "A test for who?" Mercer asked. "For him. For us. For you." Mercer looked up. "Me." Halstead swallowed hard. "Detective, you weren't assigned this case because of your experience. You were requested." "By who?" The warden's voice dropped to a whisper. "By Vanner." The room went silent. Mercer felt the air thicken. Vanner requested him? But what did he want? Before Mercer could speak, an alarm echoed through the prison, not loud and frantic like yesterday, but a single, deep siren that vibrated through the walls. Halstead froze. "That's the internal breach alarm," he said. "Not for riots. Not for violence. For escapes." Mercer's heart slammed once, hard. They ran into the corridor just as officers began shouting commands, radios crackling with confusion. Doors locked automatically. Security shutters slid down. Everything moved fast, too fast. Mercer reached the control room, pushing through a crowd of officers staring at the CCTV wall. Then he saw it. Camera 17, the library. A clean, empty table. An open book. Camera 22, the hallway by cell block C. 2 guards unconscious, but breathing. Camera 6, the laundry room. The same 5 inmates from the photo, standing still, waiting. Camera 3, the west exit air vent. A small panel removed. And then, camera 9 flickered. Static. Then a blurry figure moving through a shadowed maintenance corridor beneath the building. Steady. Wearing a guard's jacket. Mercer leaned closer. It was Elias Vanner. And taped to the wall directly above the camera was a note. Taunting. For him. Every system has a flaw. Thank you for finding mine. Mercer's pulse raced. Vanner didn't escape Redwood. He escaped through Redwood, using the same blind spots he'd created years ago. The perfect exit. The perfect ghost. As the alarms echoed through the building, Mercer understood the truth. This wasn't an escape. This was a message. And Vanner wasn't running from something. He was running toward something.